Hello beautiful people, welcome back to my channel. On today's video we're here to discuss the 4 books that I read in February. Here they are. Stats for the month. In February, as you've seen, I read 4 books. I gave 2 of them 4 stars, 1 of them 3 stars, and 1 of them 1 star. Pages for the total, I read 1,227 pages. So not bad, not brilliant, not bad. Genres wise, 1 of them was a dystopia, 1 of them was a mystery, young adult, 1 of them was a graphic novel, young adult, and 1 of them was a thriller. Now, let's talk about the books. I don't want to be here for too long, so let's keep this short and sweet. My last wrap-up took ages and I spoiled an entire book. Let's see if I manage to not spoil anything on today's video. Let's go. First book I read was Ensaio sobre a Cegueira by José Saramago. This is a Portuguese author. This book is also translated to English. It's called Blindness and it's adapted to the cinema. This is the cover of the movie. This book is a dystopia that I started reading last month and I finished in February. It tells us the story of this mysterious disease that starts affecting everyone. People out of nowhere go blind and then it just spreads to everyone. Just by looking at each other, people start going blind. And the government tries to put all the blind people in one building to try and contain the disease, but rapidly everyone goes blind and the people in the building are too many. The government is trying to feed them and whatever, but eventually everything fails and people start dying. Does this sound familiar? My thoughts of this book, I gave it 4 stars. It took me forever to read, I think basically because it's written in Portuguese. Maybe if I was reading it in English it would be quicker for me because I'm no longer used to read in Portuguese. I really enjoyed it. I watched the movie as well and I do think it's a very good book to movie adaptation, so I do recommend read the book, watch the movie, or just watch the movie. The movie is recorded in a weird way, I would say. It's not the typical Hollywood movie kind of thing, but it's a very good adaptation. The story is important. It does make you feel like humanity is getting lost, the way people are treating each other and the way people are dealing with this situation. It did make me feel at certain points, inclusive on the movie, that humanity was getting lost and people were forgetting what it is to be human and to look after each other and all that. It's a bit sad. 4 stars, I recommend it. Following that, I read Losing Brave by Bailey Mandison and Stephanie Miller. This poor book was the book that I was reading during my How to Annoy Readers video that I made in collaboration with Philippa, and if you've seen that video you know that I poured an entire glass of water on top of this book and this is how it looks now. It's not as bad because it was under some other books and yeah, the poor thing. Anyway, what is this book about? 2 twin sisters and one of them disappeared and we're approaching the 1st anniversary of when that twin sister disappeared. So we're following 2 timelines and the 2 sisters in alternating chapters. On one, we follow the sister that disappeared 1 year ago, and on the other one, we follow the other sister in the current time and how she's trying to deal with that and everything. I gave this book a 1 star. I absolutely don't recommend it. It's boring. It's written in such a confusing way. If you're not used to read books in English, then please don't read this one because for some reason, and I don't even know how to explain this, but it's like it was using regular English words and expressions, nothing really fancy, but the way the sentences were constructed, it was just hard to follow at some points. So I can imagine if you're not used to reading English, then this is just gonna tie a knot in your brain and you're not gonna be able to follow it. I mostly found it boring and confusing, and that's why the 1 star. I did finish it and I kept waiting for it to get better, but it didn't. Next up, I read Heartstopper by Alice Oseman, Volume 3. This is a graphic novel that follows the story of Charlie and Nick. I'm not going to tell you about this book because otherwise I'm going to spoil the whole story, but basically Charlie is assumingly gay. He assumes it for himself and for the whole school and whatever. And on the first book, he meets Nick, who always thought he was heterosexual and would like girls, but then he starts developing feelings for Charlie and he starts getting really confused. Eventually, Nick accepts the fact that he's bisexual and him and Charlie start having a relationship and coming out for people, and obviously Charlie is already out Like, people already know he's gay, but it's not the same case for Nick, so it's a bit more complicated for him. So slowly, they start coming out for people, for their friends, for family, whatever. On this third volume, they go on a school trip to Paris. I give this book a 3 star. Again, I don't know if it's me who I'm getting really demanding with my reads. I don't know, I found this book extremely boring. The first two I gave them 5 stars, and I always thought the story was so adorable, but this one was just boring, and the kind of conversations they were having with each other, they were so cute all the time and so supportive and so like perfect answers, and it just made me feel like there's no relationships like that. No one is so cute all the time, or no one is so supportive all the time, and it was just so cheesy. And again, I'm very cheesy myself, but this one was so cheesy, so unbelievably cheesy that I couldn't. It was annoying me so much. I gave it 3 stars, and I couldn't wait for it to end. Am I still gonna read the 4th volume? Yes, of course I am, but now my expectations are very low for this series. And lastly, the last book I read in February was The Other People by C.J. Tudor. This is a thriller book to which I gave 4 stars, and it tells us the story of a mom and a daughter that go missing. So it all happens one night when Gabe, the dad, is driving home, and in the motorway he sees this old car with some stickers and whatever, and in the back windshield he sees a girl that he thinks it's his daughter, and he's looking at her and he's like, what? And then the girl like mouths the word daddy, and he's like, oh my god, what's happening? And then someone pulls the girl out of the seat, like out of the window and down to the seat, and he starts chasing the car, but he never managed to reach the car. Then he stops in a service station and he goes to a payphone to call home because his wife was at home with their daughter. So he calls home to know what is happening. But who picks up the phone is this police officer, this agent, that tells him he needs to go home immediately because his wife and daughter have been murdered. He goes home and there's the bodies of a woman and a little girl, and it's declared it's his wife and girl, and they go missing. However, Gabe is super sure that the little girl he saw in the car was his daughter, so he never really believes that his daughter is dead. And then there's a bit of mystery around the whole thing and of Gabe trying to figure it out. This is happening 3 years later after that incident has happened, and how Gabe is trying to cope with life after that. But he never lost the hope that at least his daughter is still alive, and he's still searching for her and following clues. A bunch of other characters are also introduced to this story. It's very gripping. It's not any phenomenon of the modern literature. It does get a bit creepy sometimes, and then the ending is a bit silly, and some supernatural things start happening, which I didn't understand because it's not the kind of book. This is not a supernatural book. There's no ghosts or anything, but then at the end it's like there is. So things don't really make sense at the end, but it was the way C.J. Tudor chose to end it. I don't agree. I think it could have had such a better ending, but you know, it's still a good book. It's still a fun read. It's just the ending is very disappointing, and I'd say the beginning is very slow as well. So the middle part is good, and then the extremities are not so much. So 4 stars for this one. And that is it, guys. These are the 4 books I read in February. Nice, short and sweet. Let me know in the comments if you've read any of these, or if you intend on reading any of these, and I'll see you on my next video. Bye bye.